Did I regret doing a homestay? I would say yes. She was super French, super beautiful. I was like, wow, I'm in love with her. I can't wait to like stay with them. I tried to follow her on Instagram and she blocked me. I loved the room, super cozy, super homey, very safe, very clean, everything I could have asked for in a homestay. She gave me a warning. I couldn't handle it anymore. I had to leave. Hey guys, it's Caitlin, and today I'm here back in my car for another study abroad chit chat. Thank you guys so much for the support on my last study abroad video, by the way. I had a lot of people reach out to me, both in the comments of that video and in my Instagram DMs, asking me to talk about my homestay experience while I was in Paris. And oh boy, have I been waiting to talk about this experience. To start off, yes, my homestay experience was not super ideal, but I still had the best time studying abroad, so I just want to put out a disclaimer saying that if you choose to do a homestay, this will not necessarily be the situation you're put in. Do not base your decision on this sole experience. Just know that it is a possibility. Going into everything, there's a risk, and I took it, and this is just what happened. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was why I chose to do a homestay. My personal reason as to why I chose to do a homestay was for learning the language. I have been learning the French language for the past 10-11 years almost. So I just wanted to go there and really refine my French speaking. I don't think that you can completely learn a language without being able to live with people who are native speakers. So yeah, that's why I chose to do homestay, and it really did help. A month before I left for Paris, I got an email with the family that they were placing me with and the location and also a roommate. I didn't know that you could get roommates while being in a homestay. However, if the family's apartment is big enough where each of you will get your own room, you could possibly get a roommate. At least that's how it was in my program. I got my placement with a family, and it was a single mom and her 9-year-old daughter. I should have seen the fact that a 9-year-old would have been a red flag. However, I was extremely distracted by the fact that the mom was a French filmmaker, director, screenwriter. Like, that seems so cool. Like, imagine staying with a French director. So when I got my host mom's name, first thing I decided to do was Google her, because why not? Since she's a French filmmaker slash director, she had a few interviews up for a documentary that she made, and I thought that was so cool. I watched a couple of her interviews to kind of get a feel for her. She was super French, super beautiful. I was like, wow, I'm in love with her. I can't wait to like stay with them. And then I also got my roommate. I was placed with another student who I ended up being friends with. We got along really well. However, I did get her name, and I don't think she got my name because I tried to follow her on Instagram and she blocked me. So off to a bad start with the roommate, but you know, it got better. Also included in that very first email that you get is the location that you will be placed in. I was placed in the 14th arrondissement, which, if you don't know, Paris is separated into little districts. So Paris is shaped like a circle like this, and the 14th is down here at the bottom of the city. So it's like at the outskirts right next to the suburbs, and I absolutely loved this placement. The whole 14th district is pretty much residential. It's all residential. It's all local Parisians. It was not touristy. I could like go out and like walk around and be surrounded by people living their lives, and that's what I was doing too. I was living my life. When I lived in the 14th, I truly felt like a Parisian. The next thing I wanted to talk about is like my first impressions arriving in Paris and actually meeting the family. I ended up having a different experience than everyone else in my program, because normally we're supposed to fly into Paris at a certain time, and then the program that we're traveling with will arrange our transportation to our homestay. However, my flight ended up getting canceled and I flew in a day later, so I came into Paris super duper stressed out, and I got so lost. I ended up crying on the metro on the way to my apartment, and it was such a mess because my phone wasn't working, my card wasn't working. Obviously, my host mom knew I was going to come in later. We were staying in communication or in contact through email, so she just told me the quickest way to get from the airport to her apartment, which was so extremely helpful. And then I finally got to the train station she told me to meet them at, and there they were. They were so sweet. So the little girl was on her scooter and my host mom was just there. They were so welcoming and they were so helpful with like everything, because they could tell I was stressed out. So that was like the best welcoming I could have had. So I automatically felt comfortable with them, which was great. So we walked from the train station to their apartment. The neighborhood, like I said, was residential and very safe. The apartment I stayed in was also extremely safe. It was so beautiful. There was like a cute little courtyard in the middle. It felt super neighborly. I didn't meet my roommate this first day because she was actually out of town, so she wasn't there and I didn't really meet her until later. They showed me the room that I was staying in and it was my own room. It was so nice. I can put a picture up over here. So I had a twin bed, I had a table to work at, I had a couch, and I also had like a little balcony which looked out into that courtyard that I just talked about. I loved the room. Super cozy, super homey, very safe, very clean, everything I could have asked for in a homestay. Those were my first impressions of the apartment and my host family. They were very sweet. The next thing I wanted to go into was the first week I was there. So the first week I was there, everything was going extremely smoothly. I got to spend time with the host mom and the host daughter alone because once again my roommate was out of town. I automatically had an amazing relationship with the little girl. We would play all the time. She would show me her favorite French videos on YouTube. She taught me how to make crepes. We would always speak in French too, so it was just great practice for me to be talking with a little kid in French, and she would shamelessly correct my French and stuff like that, and she was so sweet. And I love kids. I work with kids. I have a ton of cousins, so like I'm used to being around kids, and I was completely fine with her having a good relationship with me because why wouldn't I want to have a good relationship with her? And also the mom was so cool. I don't know if you could tell, but I was like obsessed with my host mom. Like I said, she was a French director. She always worked from home and you could always hear her either like reading out scripts or trying to find music that fit best in the background of her documentary. We also had super cool conversations about the differences in the American film industry and the French film industry. It was just really cool, the different conversations that we had about the French government, about the American government. Like, she was very woke. I liked her a lot. So that was my first week alone. And then I finally got to meet my roommate. We went out together and we went flea market shopping, and we also went to get lunch at a nice prestigious French McDonald's. It was such a good time. However, one thing that absolutely terrified me was when we were sitting down at lunch, she gave me a warning. She was like, "This family, they are crazy." And I was like, what? How? So the one thing I forgot to mention was that my host sister, she was on a school break. So she wasn't in school. She was having the time of her life. She was at her happiest point. My roommate was just like, just wait until she starts school again and they will wreak havoc in your life. And I was like, I'm terrified, thanks for telling me. But I just decided to stick it out. I have a pretty high tolerance when it comes to like family drama, little kid drama, any kind of drama. So I was like, you know, I'll stick it out. It'll be fine. I think my roommate planned this ahead of time, but literally 3 days later, she was gone. Absolutely gone. There she goes. Goodbye. Like, almost without saying anything, moved out. And I was like, oh, okay. So then my host sister started school again, and that is where everything absolutely took a tumble. My host sister, not a good student, never wanted to do her homework, never wanted to practice her piano, never wanted to do anything. Her mom, understandably, would get extremely frustrated with her. So literally every day, every single day after this little girl started school, they would have fights. Yelling, screaming, 9-year-old having a tantrum, 9-year-old slamming on the piano because she didn't want to practice piano, havoc, chaos. It was so terrible. And I'm sitting in my room like, what the heck is going on? I cannot sleep. I cannot focus. Things are being thrown. It was absolutely crazy. It was so insane. I can't even explain how chaotic this household felt. The whole entire household was just surrounded by stress, surrounded by tension between the two of them, and then there was just me thrown into the mix. So if you can recall from the beginning of this video, I got along really well with my host sister, and so whenever her and her mom would have a fight, or whenever she had homework that she didn't want to do, she would escape to my room and use me as a reason not to do her homework. So like, she would come into my room unannounced. No matter what I was doing, she would just come in and sit in my room. Like, I would be changing. In the middle of changing, she has walked in. I would be sleeping in the middle of my naps. She walks in, wakes me up. I would be on FaceTime with my parents. She wouldn't like come in and be like, oops, sorry, and close the door. No, she would come in and join me on my FaceTime call. It got to a point where I would get so frustrated with her, but couldn't do anything about it. I'm not her mother. I'm not her sister. There was no relationship between me and her that would make it appropriate for me to like tell her what to do. And like, if I yelled at her, obviously her mom would be like, why'd you yell at my child, you know? So I felt stuck. I felt stuck with this little girl, and I had no privacy. There was no lock on the door. No matter how much me and my host mom would tell her to knock before coming in, she wouldn't. There are two specific times that brought me to my absolute breaking point. So there was one time she had an absolute tantrum outside of my room. Her mom and her were fighting, and she was screaming, kicking, crying, hitting, all of that stuff. Finally, she calms down. She comes into my room as I'm laying in bed on my phone, rips my phone out of my hand, and she was demanding me to open my phone so that she could play like a game on it or something. And I was like, no, not right now. Like, this is my phone. I'm using it. All of this is in French, by the way. First of all, I cannot be authoritative in French. She didn't speak English, but I was trying my hardest to be like, no, this is my phone. Like, I'm using it right now. She wouldn't give it back. So I tried to take it back, and it got physical. Like, she was physically pulling and tugging and trying to take the phone away from me. And I'm sitting there like, what the heck do I do? And her mom finally comes in and is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, thank you for saving me. Another thing was, when I was studying abroad, COVID was going on, and there were rumors that we were going to be sent home. I was super stressed about it, so I was like upset, and I was crying about the thought of being sent home, which, spoiler alert, that actually happened. I did get sent home. So I was just sitting in bed crying. I wasn't having a good day. Like, there are times where you don't have good days and you just need to sit in your room and cry. My host sister comes in the middle of me crying, sees me crying, and instead of, you know, leaving me alone, letting me be upset for a pretty valid reason, she comes in and she sits in bed and she once again asked me if she could play on my phone. And I was like, not right now. I'm not having a good day. Like, I need to be alone. And so she got really mad at me, left my room slamming the door, and started to throw a tantrum right outside of my door. How was I supposed to deal with that? Like, hello? Like, her mom was home trying to calm her down, but it got to the point where I just didn't want to be home after a long day out. Sometimes you just want to come home and be alone for a little bit. Like, everyone needs alone time, but it came to the point where I felt like I could have better alone time while out in public. Like, I felt more at ease sitting at a French cafe surrounded by people than being in my own bedroom. And like, I just reached a breaking point. I couldn't handle it anymore. I had to leave. It was such a toxic household. So I had to go in and I had to talk to the director of housing. I did not realize how much being in that toxic household affected me and affected my emotional health until I went into her office to talk to her and immediately broke down crying. There was just so much built up stress and built up emotions from staying in such a toxic household. So the program I was with was actually so extremely helpful. Such an amazing group of people work at that center. Literally the next day, they came with me and they were like, hey, we found you an apartment that you could stay at absolutely by yourself and you can move in tomorrow. However, COVID was raging, and that same day I found out that I can move into a new apartment. I also found out that I was getting sent back home to America in 2 days. So pretty much I was finally able to escape that house, but things just didn't line up right. The world was not on my side. In the end, did I regret doing a homestay? I would say yes. I definitely regretted choosing a homestay. It definitely did not ruin my study abroad experience. I had the absolute best friends. I had the absolute best time studying abroad. I wouldn't say my study abroad was ruined. I wouldn't call my study abroad a bad experience at all. However, I do think that I would have had a better time if I wasn't in a homestay. Overall, I think what you guys should take away from my story is, if you're placed with a family that has kids, don't do it. Absolutely not. Say no right away. Like, nope. No, just don't risk it. Do not risk it with kids. Email back, right away and just be like, please place me with another family. That is my study abroad homestay story. If you guys want me to make a more general like homestay expectations video, let me know. I love talking about my study abroad experience. If there are any requests on things that you want me to talk about, I could talk about Paris study abroad tips. I could talk about how to make friends while studying abroad. I could talk about anything. So if you guys really need any more tips for your own study abroad experience, please reach out to me either in the comments or Instagram DMs. But yeah, that's all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!